the inverse relationship between consistency and intensity, right? The more intense something is, the more difficult it is to be consistent with it. It works that way for our workouts, for a more intense nutrition plan compared to salad with a side of fries, right?
Right.
Like, we can live our lives with salad with a side of fries. Welcome to Salad with a Side of Fries. I'm your host, Jenn, talking wellness and weight loss for real life. We're here to clear up the myths, misinformation, bad science, and marketing to teach you how to eat and how to cheat. Are you ready? I'm having salad with a side of fries. Hey friend, welcome back to another episode of Salad with a Side of Fries. I'm your health coach and host, Jenn Trepic, always here with you every week. Joining me today is Kristen. Kristen, welcome back.
Hi, Jenn. Great to be here. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. So remind everybody really quick, you're a past client.
Yes.
You joined us on an episode earlier this year that was all about tracking without counting.
Correct.
So I'm honored to have you back.
Thanks. I
haven't scarred you.
Yeah, no.
So we were just talking before, we clicked record that it's like the thick of the holiday season now, right? Mid-December.
Yep.
And I will say today's episode is inspired by all of you and my clients, like so many of our episodes are. But this one, I've been hearing from people more than usual, actually, who are not waiting for the new year. They're saying, how can I start now? Right? Or I had a couple say, I want to start right after Christmas. And then, of course, there are the January warriors, right?
Yep.
Who are like, look, I don't even want to think about this right now. Let's just talk in January. So we're going to talk about that today, right? The pros and cons of now versus the new year. And listen, no shame, no harm or foul if you choose to start in the new year 100%. So let's think about it now, what that's going to look like so we can hit the ground running, right? How do we set ourselves up around those resolutions in general too?
Great.
Awesome. All right. As usual, before we get too far into it, we have to tell our members what they're getting this week. So members, your recipe is for Italian wedding soup. So not only is it super satisfying and delicious, but soups and stews are so easy this time of year when schedules are packed. And I think it's going to be some different flavors than you're probably having all the time. And then there's also some greens in it, which you can change up to use whatever you have in your house. So I love this one. And it's the last month of the quarter, which means it's time for your live Q&A. And because, as I keep saying, schedules are hectic, this is going to be a one-on-one. So you can find a time that works and accommodates your personal timing. So just click the link in your email to book into my calendar. So if you want this recipe or the live Q&A, that's just you and me for 30 minutes, be sure you're a member. Actually, Kristen, before I go through the whole rigmarole, you're a member.
Yes. Yes, I am.
What do you love about it? No pressure, putting you on the spot.
Wow. I really love the podcast. So I love to cook. So I definitely enjoy the recipes. But, I just think it's a great way to support the show, and the quarterly one-on-ones are nice. Once in a while I might buy something and get a discount, but yeah, just sort of makes me feel like I'm a member of this wellness community. And yeah, it's a good thing. Thank you.
Yeah. And thank you. I appreciate it for sure. And you're right. It does. It supports everything we do. There is this wellness community here. And by the way, if you guys want to do more stuff as a community, let me know. Okay, so if you want to become a member, here's what you do. You're going to go to glow.fm/salad with a side of fries, or just click the link in the show notes. For $10 a month, you get weekly recipes, a monthly article or tool, extra discounts from me and our partners, plus access to the live Q&A sessions. A total deal. Say it all the time. It's a steal because when you take advantage of the full offerings, you're saving far more than that $10 cost. It really is a no-brainer way to show yourself that your health is a priority. Plus, being a member supports this podcast and this community because we want to keep doing this. It's already over 4 years and counting. Nothing would make me happier than to continue. So remember, you're going to go to glow.fm/salad with a side of fries, or link in the show notes is easier. Once you're there, you click support now, enter your email and payment info, click subscribe, and you're all set. You're going to get this week's recipe for Italian wedding soup and your quarterly live Q&A that's a one-on-one, you and me, for 30 minutes. Okay. So, Kristen, when I said to you our topic is New Year or Now, what's the first thing you thought of?
The first thing I thought of was now. And I'm glad you reached out because I've actually started feeling the holiday creep start. And
yeah,
I have it as a goal to track for a full year. And I was sort of slacking on that and trying to get back into it. And really, I was, but it was kind of halfway. So when you reached out, I was like, I actually had just tracked an entire day and I was sort of remotivated. So that motivated me even more.
I love it. Yeah, that momentum.
Yeah.
Right. And we're going to talk about in a few minutes, like when we want to start now, what we can do. But I think, like you were saying, you're already feeling the holiday creep. And so many people right now have a case of the F-its, right, as I call them. And that's really just saying, look, forget it. It's going to be what it is. And I'll think about this again in January.
Yeah.
But I think, as I think about resolutions and what happens when we leave it to January, I think like we have this deadline in our head, and then it's actually harder to start and harder to stick with. Because I almost feel like we build it up so much.
Right.
And then, I don't know, for me, sometimes it feels like pressure.
Yeah. And also, I feel like at least I feel a lot worse come January if I haven't been
right
as conscious about, what I'm eating and how I'm moving and things like that. So, I mean, it happens. It's probably happened every year for the past 3 years. So,
yeah.
And so this year I just really want it to be something different. And I don't want to starve myself, or I don't even necessarily want to lose weight, but I want to feel good. That's probably the biggest thing. And I'd like to, come January, not feel like I have to start eating well again so I can feel better. I want to already feel good.
Yeah. I mean, what a different way to head into 2024 already feeling empowered and energetic and on a plan.
Yeah.
Right. And we're going to talk more about that too. For a second, let's think about that start in January thing.
Okay.
Right. So I'm laughing because we always have a thing of, right, like we're going to start on a Monday, right? Mm-hmm. The second Friday of January is known as Quitter's Day.
Okay. I've heard that.
Right. So it stands to reason that we build up this thing, we intend to hit the ground running, and we can last for about 2 weeks, typically. Right. And that sort of goes back to, we've talked about it before, this idea of like consistency versus intensity. I think a lot of times when we leave it for January, we have this commitment to an intensity that is very hard to maintain and to have any consistency with.
Yeah, I could see that. Yep.
We did a nutrition nugget called C versus I, if you want to go back and listen to that. And that was all about this sort of inverse relationship between consistency and intensity, right? The more intense something is, the more difficult it is to be consistent with it. It works that way for our workouts, for a more intense nutrition plan compared to salad with a side of fries, right?
Right.
Like we can live our lives with salad with a side of fries. And then the other thing that I've been thinking about with resolutions is, like we talked about it, I guess it was last year around this time. I called the episode You versus the Diet Industry, right? Because this is the time of year where everything is telling you what you need to be healthy. I mean, I feel like I even started to see it immediately after Thanksgiving with everybody on social media in this wellness space, telling you, what you should or shouldn't be doing,
right,
following the holiday. And I think when we leave it to the new year without a specific plan, we're more apt to try all the things, right? And sort of be swayed, almost like shiny object syndrome, of all of the things that are out there and available.
Gotcha.
And I think it's also worth noting a lot of the stuff that you're going to be hearing about is great. And there's a lot of stuff that we talk about all the time that's great as a next step. But sometimes I describe it as like stepping over $100 bills to pick up pennies. For example, a cold plunge can be awesome. But if we aren't giving our bodies the raw materials that it needs, if we aren't sleeping, the cold plunge can only do so much, right? The $100 bill is the sleep. The $100 bill is the nutrition.
Sure.
Right? And so we want to set those foundations first.
Gotcha.
I've personally never been the biggest fan of resolutions. I feel like when I call something a resolution, it's like by definition, it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
I guess the piece that I like about resolutions is typically I think it involves a bit of reflection on the past year, which I think is a nice exercise, to do. But I always get curious when it comes to resolutions. So I go to the interwebs, right? And I want to see what people are talking about. So this research that I found, it was a poll of about 1,005 adults in the United States, like end of November last year. So this is about people's resolutions that they made for 2023.
Okay.
29% feel pressured to set a New Year's resolution. So if you're part of that 29%, let it go. There's no pressure, right? Overall, 20% of people had improving mental health as a top priority for 2023. And then 16%, it was about the physical health piece.
Okay.
So it's interesting. I mean, I think the improved mental health is amazing, right? Fitness, weight loss, and diet were sort of all in the like high 30%, like 39, 37, and 33% versus 45% who said improved mental health. And I love that because I think we're starting to get to some of the bigger challenges that I think often stand in the way. But then I also sort of feel like without a plan, what does it matter, right? To say we want to improve our mental health without knowing what we're going to do that, it's probably part of why things only last a couple weeks.
Sure. So
right?
You're basically saying you have to have your goals, but you have to decide what steps you're going to take to achieve your goals.
Exactly. What is it? A goal without a plan is just a dream, right?
Yeah.
And then going back to what we were saying a minute ago, that plan maybe is less intense, but allows for consistency. And that's where we make the shift from a short-lived resolution to a commitment to ourselves and a focus for the year, maybe. Maybe it's a focus for the quarter, and then we're going to reassess.
Yep.
It's interesting because there's a disconnect between our confidence in reaching those goals. So 86% of men, 79% of women were confident in their ability to reach their goals, but yet like less than 10% of people keep their resolutions. So we have a disconnect in our expectations versus the reality. And by the way, that from everything I've learned in study and in practice, that is self-doubt, right? When we create these commitments and we don't keep them, we doubt ourselves. And that self-doubt creates a snowball in the other direction.
Couldn't it also be you create the goals, but you don't formulate the steps to achieve the goals? And that might be why you're not achieving them?
Totally.
Okay.
Totally. But I think people internalize that in a different way. And they say, well, I've failed.
I see.
Right? Like we set these expectations for ourselves. We don't necessarily have a plan for the whole year. We just say this high level, I want to do this thing, right? Over and over, we start something. We don't do it. We then feel frustrated with ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And we think there's something wrong with us.
Right.
Rather than creating a plan that's maybe more of the gray area and living in that, creating a routine, figuring out how to keep that consistent. And then maybe in like February or March, pushing a little bit for a shorter period of time of more intensity for a finite period of time and then coming back to it.
Right.
I talked about this last year too with the new year. This is also a time, separate from health things, right? Maybe there are other goals for the year, right? Or things that we want to do in our lives. And this is also when everybody starts to do like the dream boards and the vision boards.
Right.
I did a nutrition nugget last year called Ditching the Dream Board because I feel like we get stuck on these pictures. And then if something shows up and it doesn't look exactly like the picture, we're like, no, that's not it.
Right.
But what if this is the stepping stone? What if this is the thing that gets us there?
Yep.
And by the way, what if the there is so much bigger and better than the picture that we pulled and put on that dream board?
Yeah. Another analogy that I sometimes think about is when you're working on self-improvement, it takes a while to improve or to get that goal, whatever it is that you're looking to achieve. And it's almost like you're growing a tree. And like when you grow a tree, the roots have to take hold,
Yes.
and then it starts to come up through the soil and, grow and then sprout, and then there's leaves. But you had to go through the process of planting the seed, fermenting or whatever it is in the soil, and breaking through. And so even though you feel like not a lot's happening, if you're doing these steps that are part of your plan to reach your goal, like something is happening. You don't really feel it or see it yet.
100%. Your story of like the tree reminds me of the nutrition nugget we did, Be Like Bamboo, because bamboo grows downward into the soil before it breaks the surface. Go back and listen to that one. It's a good one. But you're exactly right. I mean, so much of what we're doing is the development to get to that point, but we can get frustrated, when you can't see the roots kind of a thing. And so part of that, I suppose, is recognizing what your plan is. And if you're executing on that plan, check the box. You're doing it. And so maybe that makes the argument for looking at our commitments for the new year and focusing on maybe the process of it versus the outcomes of it, right? We talk about process goals versus outcome goals, right? Outcome goal might be the measurement, or whether that's the scale or the body fat, or the outcome goal might be running a 5K versus the process goal of eating protein and fiber, of training regularly, of having energy, like you said, feeling really good in our skin. I think when we focus on those outcomes, or we hyper focus on those outcomes, we lose sight of the magic that's happening in the process.
Exactly.
All right. So with your New Year's resolution, for all the people waiting to January, great, right? No judgment. Always. Number one, keep listening to this. Number two, create the plan for starting so that you can then execute beyond the first 2 weeks of the year. All right.
Sounds like a plan.
All right. And then I want to talk about what you were saying before of how do we focus on feeling good now and still hit the ground running with maybe bigger commitments or additional commitments for 2024. So we'll do that after we take a break to highlight our partner for this episode. Sound good?
Great.
Big thanks to DNA Miracles, because every child is a miracle. DNA Miracles provides the highest quality body and wellness products designed for babies, children, and expectant mothers. All products are gentle, easy to use, and 100% effective when used as directed. DNA Miracles partner with leading health professionals and scientists who follow the highest standards in ingredient selection to create the most effective skin, hair, and health solutions. As natural as possible, DNA Miracles is the best and safest option on the market for you and your little miracles. From expert pediatricians to real family testimonials, everyone has fallen in love with DNA Miracles. So part of my morning routine is my vitamins. The ones I take are like the adult version of the DNA. DNA Miracles created 3 different multivitamins to help you and your littles. So one is a chewable Two are isotonic capable. The DNA Miracles Isotonic Multivitamin Plus was formulated to support the needs of children needing particular nutritional support in the areas of digestive, neurological, and metabolic health. Truly a phenomenal formula to set up your kids for success each day, giving them the gift of health this season. Even if they don't think it's a gift to them, you'll know, right? So to get 10% off your order, text the word miracles, MIRACLES, to 844-947-4846. You'll receive the link and coupon code right to your phone. Again, simply text the word miracles, MIRACLES, to 844-947-4846 to try DNA Miracles at 10% off plus free shipping. This is a toll-free number. Standard text and data rates may apply. Okay. So, Kristen, what can we do now? Right? You were talking about wanting to feel really good.
Yes.
I saw this meme or GIF, whatever it was, on Instagram that said, managing your weight around the holidays just requires a little planning. For example, I took the batteries out of my scale on Wednesday. Right?
I like it.
I mean, that's one way, right?
Yes.
And what is it for you? So you mentioned tracking before.
Yep.
But what is it for you when you're doing when you feel really good, as you said?
I think it's really surrounds the nutrition, sleep, exercise to a certain extent. But, when I'm eating a lot of vegetables and not eating a ton of sugar, I tend to feel very good. Lean protein. And it's hard. I think it's really difficult around the holidays because even if you're making good choices and you're being mindful, everything around you is cooked in like a lot of butter. There's more of all the ingredients that we tend to try to avoid or have in much smaller amounts. So cumulatively, I think it's really hard to avoid not, after a few days of that feeling kind of sluggish.
Yeah. So I think the key in those scenarios is to say, okay, what are the meals that I can have that make me feel my best, right? Generally breakfast. Because with all the holiday parties, right, it's usually there's only a couple breakfasts in there,
Yep.
right? So choosing those moments that we can have our usual go-tos, right, our typical favorites. And then you started off by talking about the vegetables and the lean protein. If the objective is to focus on those, then tick, tick, tick the box and lighten up on ourselves on the added butter and the added sugar and some of these other things, right? I think a lot of times we get frustrated because we'll say, I'm going to focus on the sleep. And then we get upset over the thing that we ate, but the plan was just the sleep. So part of what we want to do in focusing on things now is to make sure that we're adjusting the barometers to the focus that we want to have right now.
Right.
The focus that we choose, right? I like to say one thing each day, right? Maybe it's some compassion and grace for the other stuff, right? And one thing each day. So is it the protein, the fiber, getting some activity in? One thing each day. If that thing happened, or when that thing happens in the day, celebrate, enjoy it. You did it. Even if the holiday meal came with extra dessert or the work holiday party came with an extra drink.
Right.
It's all good. We want to use our one thing each day as the barometer. When we inevitably start to beat ourselves up for X, Y, or Z, right? That wasn't the focus. And so reminding ourselves of saying, wait, that's not what I was focusing on. All that's good. Fine and well, whatever. I did the thing that I was committed to doing. I'm fine. And we keep moving forward. Right? So that thing that we committed to is our new metric on a daily basis. And as I often say, stop shoulding the bed, right? Oh, I should do this. Oh, I should do that. Like, I hate the word should. I rarely use the word hate too, but the word should, the word should is so detrimental to us, right? And then all the things that you talked about your sleep, your stress, your confidence, your energy. Those are the pieces that we really want to focus on right now. And let that support us. If we can get through this time of year, not in a spiral of stress like last time, that's a win.
Yep, I agree.
So choose your one thing. Maybe it's breathing. Maybe it's meditation. Maybe it's your movement, the protein and the fiber, right? Maybe it's not even thinking about protein and fiber and it's just a vegetable every time I eat, right? And no just in that.
Right.
Take that back, right? When we do that and we commit and we stick to that, it builds confidence. It's like the opposite of what we were talking about before of not keeping those commitments. There are times in life when stretch goals, in air quotes, right? Stretch goals can be really helpful. I'm going to go out on a limb and say this is not the time for that.
Yeah.
This is the time for really easily attainable, seemingly small steps. Sticking with it is more important than what the it is.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I see the wheels turning.
Yes.
Tell us what you're thinking.
Well, I'm sort of just thinking about my day today. I mean, it started like I was up at about 3 a.m. and I couldn't really get back to sleep. And my alarm was going to go off at 5 to exercise. And so I did like a meditation tape.
Nice.
15-minute meditation. And I didn't fall asleep, but I just decided to sort of just lay there. And eventually I fell asleep, and sure enough, my alarm woke me up at 5. And I was like, oh. But, I didn't feel that bad. And I did exercise, and I had a really stressful day, and I had to run around. I had a flat tire, so I had to go to
no.
There's a lot going on today. And, I was driving back from the dealership, and I was starving. And I was like, here's a pizzeria. I've got a conference call at 2:30. I'm going to get a slice. And it was little, but I had it. But for the rest of the day, I was, pretty good with eating protein, fiber, vegetables. And I feel good.
Yeah.
I mean, my sleep wasn't perfect, but I did what I could. I had a kind of a greasy piece of pizza, but otherwise I was pretty, I made some good choices. And, my stress level isn't that bad right now. So
good.
I feel like I'm, looking back, I feel like I learned something. And I think that if I can have a few more days like this, like it might help me, like you said, build confidence and feel even better as I go into next week.
Exactly. And I love what you just said too, of I focus on the things I did do, right? Which I always say comes back to tracking, because most of the time when we look at that piece of paper, we see all the things we did do.
Mm-hmm.
And you said you learned something. And I want to point out, first of all, congratulations, because that is also magic.
Thanks.
Right? When we can learn about ourselves in this process, when we can say, okay, that was not to plan, and yet it's all fine. And here's what I learned about it.
Yep.
It's still a win, right? So focusing on the commitment that we made to identify the wins, recognizing everything we are doing. And by the way, even if the thing didn't happen, but you can learn from it, to me, that's still a win. The trick is then to say, in thinking about it, right? Why didn't it happen? What needs to exist the next time for the thing to happen?
Right.
And I've heard it once, I've heard it a million times. So I'm going to call everybody out on this. And I say this with all the love in the world. What ends up happening is people say, I just need to do it. You know what's not helpful? Telling yourself you just need to do it. Right? What needs to happen for it to be easier to do? Do you need to set your alarm for a different time? Do you need to bring a veggie to the party? Do you need to chug a bottle of water on your way to the party? Do you need to keep a bag of almonds in your coat pocket this time of year? Right? What needs to happen for it to be easier to do the thing that you wanted to do? Nobody wins for making this the hardest.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that I know, like when I go into our office, there's always a lot of candy and cookies laying around. And come 2:00, I usually have a craving for something sugary. And if I haven't packed snacks, like healthier snacks, it's really hard for me to not succumb to eating that stuff. So I've just learned to bring cooler of healthy snacks and seltzer waters and it's helpful. And, does it keep me from having a piece of hard candy? No. So, but I won't have 12. And sometimes that happens if I don't pack snacks. So it's like, that's definitely a tool I apply.
Yeah. I'd say look at lunch, make sure we're getting enough protein at lunch. Maybe plan for the hard candy right after lunch. So you're having it with lunch. The other thing is to say, what am I actually looking for at 2:00? I think I probably just need a break.
Yep.
Right? How can I give myself a break? And speaking of that, that also kind of reminds me, because this time of year is a lot of travel, a lot of holidays. Even if you're not traveling, it's time off, right? Out of our schedule and routine. What if we redefine what a holiday or vacation looks like or means to you? I don't know if you've heard this. Have you heard sleep is the new luxury?
No, but I believe it's a saying. Yeah.
Right. I mean, there are places creating like sleep vacations.
Oh, that's funny.
Like a sleep retreat. And to say it's the new luxury, or maybe the phrase is sleep is the new wealth, but same thing. It's this idea that like, if you have a life where you sleep enough, like what's your secret? Right. Yeah. Like that's luxury. That's wealth to sleep in that way these days, given our modern lives. So potentially holiday or vacation looks like sleep, looks like reading a book.
Yep.
Resting. Maybe it's a massage or a facial, right? You don't necessarily have to do the things that cost a small fortune sometimes, right? But that slowing down, how do we cultivate that right now as part of our plan for this moment? Maybe going back to that meditation that you did.
Yeah. And also, I know that alcohol affects my sleep. And sometimes during the holidays, people might say, okay, I'm not going to drink during the week, or I'll only have a couple drinks at a party during the week, and I'll have alcohol on the weekends. But like, when do you recharge? It's on the weekends. And if you're drinking alcohol on the weekends, I'm not going to have good sleep. So I haven't quite done this recently, but my thought is maybe one of these weekends I should just not drink alcohol and just sleep.
Right. Absolutely. Something to consider.
Yes.
So choosing that thing that we commit to now, right? And it doesn't need to be now versus the new year. Now doesn't need to be everything that we might do in the new year. Now needs to be something small that will be a yes each day and build the confidence into the new year.
Mm-hmm.
And then I want you to commit now to what you'll do in the new year so that we have the plan. We don't necessarily have to have that shiny object syndrome of everything coming at us, right? We know what we're doing in January. And of course, I have an option for everybody. So January 2023 is my resolution revolution program. It's going to be 6 months. So here's the deal. So we're going to start, everybody gets a one-on-one intake. From there, I'm going to give you a menu plan and we're going to decide on which package is right for you. There's going to be a weight management package and an optimal health package. I'm going to come back to those in a second. From there, we're going to meet as a group every other week for group coaching for 6 months. I have to tell you guys, this is the most economical coaching package I've ever offered. The supplement regimens are based on my 16 years of experience working with clients to have you get from where you are to where you want to be, whether that's optimal health and, and energy and sleep and managing that stress, or on the weight management side, right? And of course, one's going to lead to the other for sure on both sides. And then if you commit in December, I'm going to give everybody who commits in December a free one-on-one each month of that program. So you'll have 2 group sessions and a one-on-one each month if you commit in December. So that link will be in the show notes for everybody. You'll get all the details. Your one-on-one, we can help you choose which package, unless you're like, this is me. I am focused on removing the fat in 2024, right? Or alternatively, there's a lot of people who are like, look, I don't necessarily have quote unquote weight to lose. But I want the information. I want to know what this is like. I would love some, accountability and to see what this is all about. Because also, how do I evaluate all the things that I see on social media? Right? So that would be your optimal health kit person who's looking for that. And we're going to take you through. We're going to make sure by working together for 6 months, we're going to make sure that you stick to those resolutions, right? This is the resolution revolution of 2024.
Sounds good.
Awesome. Small things now. Commit to what you're going to do in January, whether it's resolution revolution or something else. Have your plan. Build the confidence. Kristen, final thoughts?
No, but this has been very inspiring. Like I said, it was really timely when you reached out. And I don't know if I really had thought about just trying to do small things now, but developing a plan for January. I think I was just trying to get to the end of the year, but why not think about where do I want to go in January? And that might be that things might settle down a little bit more. And that could be a good time to launch more goals and objectives.
Awesome.
Plans.
Yeah. I love it. And I think I would say whether you choose now or the new year, it's 100% fine. Remember that your health is not about what happens from Thanksgiving to New Year's. Our health is about the commitments that we make and the small steps that we repeat over and over and over. That's what we want to focus on. The small steps that we repeat over and over and over.
Great.
Awesome. All right. That brings us to our nutrition nugget.
Okay.
On Friday, we're talking about airports. So I'm traveling this season for the holidays. If you're traveling during the holidays, you're likely experiencing the airport. Even if you're traveling by car, by the way, I feel like this conversation applies to those road trip rest stops. I remember as a kid, airport food was a thing. I grew up in the suburbs of Detroit. At the Detroit airport, for me, it was all about the Cinnabon cinnamon roll. You could smell it when you walked in, right?
Yep.
These days, airports have a lot more options. So we're going to talk about navigating airports and airport foods. I'm going to give you guys my tips and tricks for airports on Friday. So be sure to click the follow or plus sign in the app where you're listening. And then your app will remind you when the Nutrition Nugget goes live on Friday morning. Well, as always, everybody, I'm your host, Jenn Trepeck. Connect with me on Instagram or all social media. I am at Jenn Trepeck, JENNTREPECK. Website is asaladwithasideofries.com. I want to hear from you. Send a message if you're curious about the Resolution Revolution program. Link in the show notes or send a message. Nothing makes me happier than hearing your takeaways, your ideas, your questions. Kristen, thank you again for being here.
Thank you.
And of course, if you are not already a member, join our membership program by going to glow.fm/saladwithasideofries. This shows your support for this community, this podcast, but most importantly, it supports your health. You'll get this week's recipe for the Italian wedding soup and details for your quarterly live Q&A. That's a one-on-one, just you and me. So until next week, remember, you get to decide if it's the new year or now. And know that no matter what, I'm here to support you and guide you to your happiest, healthiest life. Well, friends, that's it for today's episode of Salad with a Side of Fries. Congratulations for making yourself and your health a priority. Thanks so much for joining us. Be sure to click subscribe or follow on your favorite podcast platform. Share us with a friend, and we'll be back next week. Always remember, you deserve it, and you are worth it. Happy healthy.